Hey everybody, welcome back psychologists. I'm your professor Ryan Keith and we're here for our June 5th live stream. I appreciate you tuning in to get the answers to some of your burning questions. Today we actually have a pretty short one. Maybe part of it is we're all like recovering from having just gotten that first test done. Maybe it's that I did not exactly have the stuff posted in an easy to get to place like I usually will, but if you're upset that you didn't get a chance to get a question in or take a look at this live stream, I guess if you don't have a chance to take a look at this live stream, you won't be hearing this. But if you're upset you didn't get a chance to get your questions in, we can just get them in for next week and get some bonus points for that, and we'll talk a little bit more. The result is we got kind of a short one today, which isn't a bad thing. Means we can be a little bit more focused. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'm excited. I got to say that we're past that first test. One thing before we get started, I know everybody's really anxious to know, like, how did they do on that test, and what does it mean for your performance in the class here? One of the big things to remember about my class in particular, but really any class, is that your first test is not really a fantastic indicator of how you're going to do overall. It's your first experience with my class, your first experience with one of my tests, maybe your first experience with a test that like has an essay question on it. You haven't gotten my kinds of questions before. There are a whole lot of reasons why we don't want to say like, take a look at this test and feel like that's going to be a predictor of how everything's going to go. For this reason, remember too that I drop your 2 lowest test grades as long as you take the final. So just plan on taking the final, knock out those 2 lowest test grades, and things will be good. Nobody asked a question about it yet, but I'm just going to assume some of you will want to know when those test grades are going to be posted and what that'll mean. If it's not up already, I think I have a video on how tests get posted that should be up there soon, that shows you like how do I go through grading these guys. Sometimes it takes me a little while because I have to grade those essays. I don't know who it was who decided that you needed 2 essays in one test, but if I wasn't regretting it when I assigned it, man, I kind of wish I didn't have 2 of them to grade now, but I am excited. I'm seeing a lot of really good responses, and it seems like you guys have been getting a lot of good stuff out of the class. Hopefully, in the future, this essay stuff is going to feel pretty good too. You'll have an idea, right, of like what these essays are like and what I'm going to be asking you to do, and you can use them as a guide of like what to look at over the course of the couple of weeks that you're being tested on. When in doubt, if you have any questions about the test, what it means for your grade, how you're doing, why you missed something, and any of that stuff, feel free to reach out to me. Canvas messaging, email, text messaging, phone call, all of it is super good. Of course, stop in during office hours too. I love that also. So yeah, without any further ado, let me go ahead and just get us started on our questions here. We don't have a ton, but I'm going to go ahead and jump on them. Our first couple of questions relate specifically to COVID, which I have to be honest, like I'm dealing with a ton right now as we try to figure out what the fall is going to look like. One of the things that might be a little disconcerting to hear now is that if you're signed up for fall classes, keep an eye open for like what that schedule might look like as it changes. There's a lot in flux right now in terms of like online classes, in-person classes, and what like in-person hybrids might look like come fall. So you want to keep an eye and make sure that these meeting times are going to be the same that you thought they were when you signed up for them. Our first question tied to COVID says, how has COVID-19 affected you or your family? And one of the biggest ways it's been affecting me lately is planning for the fall semester. Usually at this point, we've got our like schedule set. We know how everything's going to look. And at this point, out of my standard teaching load, I teach 5 classes a semester. I have 2 of them that I still don't really know what they're going to look like come fall. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of us, as we don't really know what those experiences will be like. Some of you, for example, might be planning to transfer to UF, right? Or to other universities for the fall semester. And we don't really know things like what will dorms look like, what will common areas look like, much less what classes will look like. So I think that sense of uncertainty is something that in a big way has affected me. I know that a lot of us are dealing with a lot of anxiety and pressure tied to the COVID stuff, but one of the things that has been a nice boost is that I've gotten to spend a ton of time with Grady at this point where he's learning to do things like walk and talk and get around. So that's something that's really exciting. The next question says, do you think Corona will have longer lasting effects on the economy than planned? And I think like, we've never been through anything like this before. And I think we keep trying to reach for other comparisons, whether it's the housing downturn, the Great Depression, the 1918 flu epidemic. It's really hard to predict what this stuff will be like. I think we all want to be braced for unexpected changes, expect the unexpected. But whether that's like changes in the job market, changes in the prices of things like rent and housing or groceries, like we all saw what happened with toilet paper of all things. And there tend to be with big situations like this, there tend to be long lasting effects that are hard to predict. And I think we want to just kind of keep an eye on that stuff. As always, like I imagine flexibility is one of the key things that we can do. Maintaining flexibility can be one of the big things we can do to be as successful as possible. I know flexibility can be tough, especially as we're dealing with as much stress and uncertainty and pressure, and in a lot of cases like fear and anxiety as we are. I know that if the global pandemic wasn't enough, sorry for that, if the global pandemic wasn't enough to cause you to feel stressed and anxious, there's a lot of sociocultural stuff going on. Next week's material, I'm going to be changing up a little bit this week. I'm going to change up and add maybe a couple of things that tie into some of the civil unrest that's going on, and taking a look at the perspectives of some of the people who might be involved. And, as a social psychologist, we're always interested to see like why things like this happen. So keep an eye on some of that stuff too. Now, getting down to the last couple of questions, we only had 4 this week. I wanted to talk briefly about the questions that had to do with class policies. They're actually two really related questions. The first says, how long does it usually take to grade the tests? I always shoot for about a week. Sometimes it takes a little bit more, like a week and a half. In this case, it might because I've got an extra essay in there, but also because it's your first one. I want to make sure I do a good job and pay close attention. Of course, I always want to do a good job. But, the reason I had that second essay on there is because we were covering more material. And I know a lot of students don't like essays. I know I hated them. I always preferred multiple choice. I think most of us do. But what's interesting is that if I look at grades for essay and multiple choice questions, what I see is that overwhelmingly students do better on essays than on multiple choice questions, which is kind of stunning. Like, I know we all like that, what seems like certainty of seeing a question and being able to pick an answer, but an essay is really an opportunity for me to see what it is you know rather than what you don't know. And I'm always looking for places to give you credit. So when in doubt, like, give me something to work with. I think some of the biggest stuff I've seen in terms of essays, you want to make sure you really answer the question. You want to make sure you connect ideas together. When I ask you, for example, in a question like the fake it till you make it, right? I want to see your ability to connect these ideas together in much the same way that I did in the fake it till you make it video. It is cool, like you might be able to tell me about self-appraisal and reflected self-appraisal and presentation and stuff, but preparing ahead of time will allow you to get that whole picture of how all of this stuff really explains your self-concept. The same thing when I ask about fixed mindsets, growth mindsets, are you like a math person or not? I want you to connect those things together. And if you can explain that you're a math person, that's great, but then you go on to say that you have a growth mindset, it's tough to really reconcile those ideas, because if you maintain a growth mindset, you'd say like, well, I'm a math person for now, but there are always places to grow and change. So you always want to keep in mind that ability to connect those together. The second question asked, when can we expect more grades to be in the grade book? You should have seen some go up today. In addition to tests, you guys do have some participation grades and stuff like that. Sometimes what happens is I grade stuff and frankly, I forget to click the little thing that shows you your grades. So when in doubt, if it's been a little while and you're concerned about a grade, like I'm going to try to keep that from being an issue, but you can always go ahead and prod me, send me an email, a Canvas message and ask, when is an assignment going to be available? So, yeah, so I think that kind of does it. We had a really short one this week. That's totally cool. I hope you get a chance to watch this all the way through, and there are people actually listening to or watching this, and you find it useful. When in doubt, remember, go ahead and submit questions for next week's live stream Q&A if you have any questions, and you can go ahead and get some bonus points for that. Remember, again, Canvas messaging, email, send me a text message, give me a phone call, stop in during office hours. You can reserve a time too. I'm happy to talk about grades, about class, about COVID, about protests, about police forces, about anything else you want to. I'm happy to. So hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will look forward to talking to you later. Until then, this is Social Psychology, and I'm your professor, Ryan Keith.